Might be doing a lot of talking tonight because I'm tired and nobody watches the night videos. I can't say I blame them, man. Nobody wants to watch jittery dark video. So I'm just going to be doing some calculating with the old philosophies here. Just think about everybody's political positions and philosophies and beliefs. For the most part, people's hearts are in the right place. So there's a little flaw in just about everybody's plan. And the sticking point is everybody believes that they're absolutely right and won't even take into consideration that maybe they need to alter one or two things here or there. Maybe we can compromise on a couple of things. I spent the last month and a half starting to try to figure out what the world really is and trying to accept it. It isn't a place where the good guy always wins. It isn't even a place where the good guy is well defined. Walk around living my life and not realizing that some of my beliefs were influenced by the John Birch Society. Then I've got liberal philosophies, some conservative approaches. I guess at the end of the day, the only thing I believe in is personal accountability, but at the same time, community involvement. I want us to work together when we're struggling, but at the same time, I want everybody to back off and let us figure out things for ourselves. I don't want the government watching everything I do, and I don't want them trying a one-size-fits-all approach to solving problems. I need a spotter. I need a spotter. Someone to help me get it when I'm struggling with it. I think I've said this before, though. There are a lot of bad spotters out there. The guys that'll hold the bar, and while you're lifting, they'll be lifting it with you. And I was like, no, I don't need that. I just need, if I'm struggling, tap it up, or if I completely fatigue out, just help me grab it and put it back on the rack. That's my lifting philosophy, which kind of gets extends to my every other philosophy. I like the idea of the basic income. I think it's a wonderful suggestion. I think when you're not struggling to provide your own needs, you're free to pursue some positive wants. I don't know if if I believe the hype, though. Do we really have enough food, supplies, and housing for everybody? And it's just a matter of greed? Or are we like the mighty duck? Everything looks calm on the surface, but we're kicking like mad underneath. I know that the police try their best, the governments try their best, but at the end of the day, you spend a lot of your life on your own. I mean, it kind of scares me to think that right now there are men being hunted for sport. There's nothing anybody can do about it as far as, well, there's nothing anyone's doing about it. The men being hunted for sport are lone wolves, the abandoned scraps of society. And they're easy pickings for men who have an urge to kill. But at the same time, you can't live in fear of that, because it is a rare occurrence. Like, I remember hearing, I think it was an anime I heard it in, where the guy said laws are weak. You choose to obey them. By law, I'm allowed to say, I'm supposed to be able to say what I want without fear of government reprisal, but the reality is totally bent. At the end of the day, what I say doesn't protect me from individual citizens. And some individual citizens in positions of power will think nothing of abusing that power to shut me up. It takes time to enforce laws. It doesn't take any time to obey them. Once again, you choose. On video, I get people running the stop sign and running the stop lights. And it irks me because I have this anal sense of order, but at the same time I have to start, in the back of my head, there's this program that has to run and say, what was the purpose of that law? The purpose of that law was to keep people from getting killed at intersections during busy peak traffic hours. Well, there's nobody out there, you know. Every once in a while, seeing a guy run a stop sign or stoplight, it's probably not going to cause mass hysteria, panic, or death. The problem I have is what happens when it becomes a habit. You blow through a stop sign, you don't see this guy coming, and you T-bone him, or he T-bones you. People think they're in control, and then they found out the hard way they aren't. Reading stories, not knowing if they're true or not. A lot of people out here, but it's a nice night. Reading stories about how the financial collapse of 2008 wasn't as bad as it could be because there was this soft cushion of dirty money propping up the U.S. economy. I say dirty. Let's just say off the books. Drug dealers with lots of cash, cartels, whatnot. And I start to wonder about the whole drug law thing. One side points to addiction and destroy families and violence and death. But those are all things we struggle with legal drugs like alcohol. Hey, what's up, Husky Love? It's okay for me to pass? I'm not violating your space, am I? Just, You're gonna follow me, aren't you? Nope. I've never been bitten by a husky. Never been barked at by a husky. Huskies are a quiet breed. You see a husky back there?
Yeah, he just scurried around there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bro. See, like, that's illegal, you know, but I'm not gonna lock the guy up or talk bad. Sometimes the dogs get out, man. And I got opinions on that. A dog's just not a city creature. Doesn't matter the size. Dogs are roaming animals. They have packs that they can roam the entire continental United States with no issue. And you're telling them, okay, you've got to be in a little area, and you can't be curious about all those wonderful smells that you're encountering. I keep thinking that the coolest dogs ever are the ones that live in Russia. The metro dogs. These are dogs that have adapted to living in man's cities. They don't bark, they don't bite, they know how to ride the subways. The scientists actually tracked them. They said that these dogs can hear the sounds, and based on the tones, they know where the stops are. In other words, they can kind of interpret language. But really more just the sounds, which is what language mostly is. They can tell by somebody's body language whether or not they think the person means them harm, or it might be a dog catcher. It's kind of funny about Russia. Like, libertarians talk about what they want limited government. That's kind of what Russia is. Russia is a state of practical law. Somebody might say, well, what about the corruption? There's no place that... Apparently there's corruption everywhere now. Are they corrupt to the point of dysfunction? Almost. But everybody seems to know who's in charge. There are guys who write theories on foreign policy and political states. And right now we're in an age where giant corporate bodies now dictate how states are run. every once in a while they butt heads with the established government states about human rights and various legal issues, but those rules are eroding. We have labor laws in the United States, therefore companies will find two ways to get around it. They'll keep the company small enough to where the labor laws don't apply, or they'll simply go somewhere where there aren't that many labor laws. These corporations are based in countries that have these laws, countries that have these rights in place, and they skirt around them. They're in essence above the law. What I found curious was the rise of private military contractors and how some corporations have their own, are very close to having their own armies. Something like out of RoboCop, where Big Jones makes a statement that's almost prophetic today. He goes, "You guys, what did the guy say? You guys in contact with the military?" He said, "Hell, we practically are the military." And he's right. You may be living someday in a corporate neighborhood, gated community with limited access, and its own private security force that police and municipal jurisdictions don't have any sway there. In fact, that's essentially what Highland Park is. And I got here quick. The curious thing is, I don't mind being watched. It's a little disconcerting, but I get used to it. I get tired of interference. Like, I'm being watched right now. Not just on this camera, but I'm always on stage. What I'm always trying to project is non-threatening. Sometimes that's not what people choose to see. And I talk about black stuff and white stuff, and I'm tired of talking about black stuff and white stuff because I think it's all bullshit. It's against the law of the United States of America to be poor and ignorant. And if you just happen to be black, poor, and ignorant, well, you're an outlaw. If you're white, poor, and ignorant, you're an outlaw. It's your fault. The bootstraps mentality. And I have a problem with that because, like they said, sometimes you're telling a guy to pull himself up by his bootstraps. He didn't have boots. Give everybody an equal starting point. Then, yeah, it's on you. At that point, it's like, look, you were given all this at the beginning, just like everybody else. And this is what you became. It's on you at that point. Except that's not the way it goes down. It's almost like the game of Monopoly. Everybody starts out with 200 bucks, rolls the dice, and then it becomes a game of probability and not personal accountability. That's when I have a problem. Right now it's a probabilistic system. You're born poor and without any means. You're born to a poor, ignorant mother. Chances are you're probably going to stay poor and ignorant yourself. I understand you got. I understand you got to fight for everything. No. But I get tired of fighting too hard for every damn thing. So all I'm griping and complaining about is some changes do need to be made. Some problems are easily solved. You got greedy and egoistic people making excuses of why it can't be done. I never say her name right. I don't know if it's Ayn Rand or Ayn Rand or whatever. Everybody knows who we're talking about, though. Oh! Profound double cross. I think it's okay to be a little selfish. I think there's a certain time where you're like, you know what? I can help you, but I can't help you unless I help myself first. I can't pull you up if I'm not on stable ground myself. I can't feed you if I got nothing to eat myself. So I understand being a little selfish. But just from a purely scientific standpoint, I can't be completely selfish all the time. You need other people. People say, I don't need anybody. It's like, that's not true. You needed somebody to get in this world. You needed somebody to wean you while you're growing up in it. You need somebody to make some of the stuff that you're using because you can't make everything. And even the most ardent, self-sufficient guy in the world, every once in a while has to go and interact with civilization to survive. Strength in numbers. with the idea of a limited government, but not to the point where you got anarchists with guns kind of running around and dictating how everything happens. No such thing as the absence of government. Because it only takes one person to form a government. The United States of me. I'm governing myself. It's interesting. So at the end of the day, you might just sit there and have to reconcile that right now this is as good as it gets. It's depressing, frustrating. But you shouldn't have to look at the big picture and limit too long. Just start making little changes, and they add up after a while. Pick up a can, confront somebody every once in a while when they're doing something wrong, because maybe they just didn't know. For the most part, find yourself a little space and try to maintain it the best you can. Sometimes if you do that and people see you're doing that and they respect you, your area gets bigger. And you start getting help maintaining it. I started thinking about the Malthusians, talking about there's too many people, and maybe there is. Or maybe we're just not managing the resources as effectively as we could. Living in this city, it feels like spaces are getting way too expensive. Anyway, find some pavement, burn some calories. Hey. That's always what's on my mind. And I get angry and I say stupid things. That's just a part of being human. You can apologize for it, but it doesn't change the fact that in your head these things exist. Everybody's a little scary. But are you able to manage your anger and scare? God help me. Here's how I want the basic income to work. You can opt in, you have to opt into it. And you have a stipulation that says, look, if you take this money, you'll be taxed heavily later. Like if you get gainful employment. I guess you can try it two ways. At first you can just give them the money. And if it starts to bomb out, then I guess you add the strings. But I guess that's how welfare is today. What I'm saying is, at first you give them the money, and then if they screw up, you put them on probation. Then you can do all that harsh shit, but don't treat everybody like a criminal right off the bat. You know, I guess you could say, we'll give you the money and we'll check on you in 1 year. And if you got your shit together, you keep it in the money, no strings attached. But if you're doing worse, then we're gonna have to start getting involved. I guess that's what I'm saying about the compromise. Both sides can be satisfied. We can have a limited government with added levels as the situation needs it. A dynamic government. We don't need a small government or big government. We need a dynamic one. Anyway, everybody have ideas for solutions. I'm sure everyone does. But like I said, the problem you can make money off of. Word ignorant means exploitable. That exploitation is profitable. But like the welfare state as it stands today, it's not about solving problems. It's about theater. One side shows they care about the poor, but they actually don't. The other side makes it look like they're tough. They're physically tough, but they're not, because they spend money on wars and other bullshit and corporate welfare. So you go after this little drop in the bucket, making it look like you're doing something, but you're not doing a damn thing. In essence, you're buying and selling votes. Like I said, in the problem lies profit. I'm talking about how welfare works in the United States. I'm not sure how it works in other countries. Other countries, they seem to have their shit together. You know, basic education, you understand that people have to be educated in order to govern themselves. Free health care. You want to keep your population healthy. But I love how people talk about countries that have free healthcare. Oh, there's all sorts of corruption, and you have to wait for a doctor and blah blah. They talk about their problems as if their system with no healthcare, no public healthcare, has none whatsoever. Well, at least we don't do this, that, and the other. No, you just let people die in the streets, and there's rampant fraud and misuse in your system as well. Corruption. Talking about the spec in public health care is high when you got a plank in yours. For example, the British healthcare system may have some problems, but I'll take their problems over ours any day of the week. I could probably fix their problems. They'll probably let me. Now remember I said earlier, it seems like that contradicts, right? When I say I want a spotter to kind of tap the bar, but I don't want him to hold the weight the whole time I'm doing the lift. There are degrees of spotting. You tell the guy what you want. You tell the guy how you want him to help you, and he helps you. When I say tap the bar, basic income still does that. You're getting just what you need to get by. You want more? Work for it. We'll give you food, education, healthcare, and shelter. Even transportation. People say, you didn't say the internet. And that's like, it's part of education. Sometimes I think defense ought to be taken out of the budget, because we could teach people to defend themselves. But the reasons military's kind of worked for the last 1,000 years is because of chain of command and discipline. may not always get that with the private defense force. Kind of like the way the Japanese got their head screwed on. The Japanese and the Swiss. And someone might say, well, what about the whole thing in Korea? I guarantee you they get that one missile off. The Japanese Defense Force, unleashed, would turn North Korea into a smoking rubble. I guarantee you this. Right now they have to play ball and be a part of the stupid. They're not part of NATO, but are they? No. The bottom line is they have to follow the leads of the world police, the United States. And I'm not going to lay it all at the feet of the United States. The United States volunteered and the world accepted. The world has to start taking more of an active role. Countries have to start taking a more active role in defense. And say to the United States, you know what? Your service is over. But as I said before, it's a profitable problem. Bases around the world mean money. But there's a chance for some corporations to start making money. The United States pulls out, a private military corporation fills in. OCPs all over the world. Pay us this much per month. We'll take care of all your defense needs. I don't know. Just brainstorming. In Roman times it was Hannibal. In modern times it's Hitler. This warring boogeyman. That we're all afraid might pop up someday. I'd expected there to be more people out here. I don't know, the Houston thing. I jumped in there and I started throwing blame around, but it is a problem that everybody knew the city was flooding. Everybody knew the hurricanes are going to get stronger. Everybody knows that that the United States is in need of major infrastructure overhauls. And people sat on their hands. And now you got this city that's flooded out for days, possibly months. And all you can do is watch it unfold. I keep thinking you can never be too safe. you had told all those people to evacuate and the storm didn't hit, you still didn't lose anything. What is it they're always saying? Better to be safe than sorry? Houston's looking mighty sorry right now. I will say this though, either they're suppressing it or it's not happening. Things seem pretty calm right now. Haven't heard reports of violence or disorder, just flooding and tragedy. In other words, the things that nature mostly caused. At the same time, everybody wants to preach about how great the nation is, and then you see it on camera where natural disaster makes us look just as unprepared as a third world country. Third world countries, it's just a matter of lack of resources. In this country, it's just plain old-fashioned fucking inaction. Like I said, problem. It's more profitable. There's a problem in Houston now. There's going to be a problem for a few months. Somebody's going to make a fortune off of someone else's misery. Hell, they may finally clean out all the wards that they thought were full of undesirables. I don't know. If Houston isn't gentrified after this, I'll be shocked. I think Dallas is about to get a lot more crowded. Dallas, Austin. No, probably just us. Maybe San Antonio. Can't seem to loosen up. Fighting myself here. It's a nice night and I should be able to sprint like a gazelle. Maybe I'm going faster than I think. Because I'm going faster than I think. I just want to run like the $6 million man half the time. But I'm 40 years old and on a diet and everything else that goes with the territory. The muscles just ain't there. Anyway, maintain my own garden. I got a degree, but I can't rest on my laurels. In this country, it doesn't matter. In this country, we have to start seeking practical education, which means I'm always learning. These things are always changing, especially in the tech field. There's a new USB standard. Program languages are always changing. There's a flavor of the month thing going on there. But the concepts always remain the same. That's why you see some Fortran guy shocked that some of the stuff he learned 40 years ago is still in play today. How some of the programs are even. Once again, there's a problem, there's profit. You could have switched your old system, old legacy systems over to the new stuff, but that costs too much money. So you keep limping along, paying these guys a smaller amount, which you don't see is over time. Limping along and patching costs you more in the long run than if you just switched over and future-proofed in the first damn place. What I hate about IT is it's like you're a fingertip away from being able to touch the stars. But somebody put this idiotic barrier in your way to keep you from doing so. In IT, we can always do better. We have to. But we're limited by the stupidity of our customers. Or the stupidity of those who are already in control. Case in point, they're trying to get IPv6 out there, and they're supposed to be implemented by now, but it got stalled. One of the major reasons was the concern about privacy. Every device on an IPv6 network has an identifier. You can't hide behind proxies and everything else anymore. I understand that, I really do. So right now we're kind of in a mesh system. We're on these IPv4, v6 hybrid types of networks. And eventually I guess we'll start phasing out IPv4 maybe. I was saying the privacy is like a second back burner thing. The big issue is switching over routers and whatnot. People who paid for domains. Basic greed and bureaucracy. You can touch a star, but you have to pay. You have to fill out the paperwork before you do it. You can cure cancer, but first you got to fill out the paperwork. Right now, there's a cure for cancer. It's just that it's got to clear the red phase tape first. Well, I say cure for cancer, but like I said, cancer is a symptom. People's immune systems are failing. We don't know why. We have a pretty good idea. Never seen a bicycle helmet with an amber light. Is there a cure for cancer? Yeah. Gene therapy. If we were the altruistic species that we claim to be, in another generation, cancer, heart disease, all that stuff won't exist. You'll be spotting cancer in the womb. You'll say, oh, let's nip that in the bud right now. Weak heart valves, we'll take care of that. We will start breeding super babies. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. People are going to break the rules. Hell, there might be a Superman amongst us right now. Because what has been 20 years since we had Dolly the sheep? Or Dottie, whatever the name of that sheep was. Gender reassignment surgery will involve injections. I can't tell if that was 9 or 10. So I'll do one more because it's such a nice night out here. People say, well, one of the problems is that genetic reassignment surgery will allow criminals to change their identity. Maybe. But isn't that what America's about anyway? A second chance? Besides, as I said earlier, we aren't catching all the criminals. We just aren't. There are a lot of guys getting away with a lot of stuff. But we don't have a total societal collapse, so you take what you can get. I mean, what are the odds that amateur criminals are going to be able to afford that procedure anyway? As I said earlier, it's against the law in this country to be poor and ignorant. The reason I say that, it's against the law in this country to be an amateur. This is a country for professionals. And if you're a professional, everything's legal. Professionals don't give away. Will only give up as much information that is needed. They're discreet. They're tight-lipped. They're methodical. They're strategic. They're educated. They're experienced. Professional criminals aren't criminals, they're just professionals. Our country is run by a quote-unquote a professional criminal. Donald Trump steals, has stolen, will steal. But is it really stealing when you finagle them into giving you the money in the first place? That's where a professional and a criminal, that's the line. If I can convince you to give it to me, it's not stealing. It doesn't matter if I lied to do it. Because with our system, all I have to do is get 11 idiots and apathetic people. Tie that up. It is not against the law to lie. Whatever they say may be written is bullshit. It's really hard to get people on perjury, slander, you know, all this stuff that was written back when the Enlightenment period, when people thought, when gentlemen's word were everything. There are no more gentlemen. Maybe there never was. I think gentlemen are a farce. Chivalry was this whole notion. Fair play amongst nobles when they were screwing each other in secret, literally and figuratively. It's not illegal to lie because you have to prove that somebody lied, and that's harder than you think. Bill Clinton lied about having an affair with his wife. Stayed in office. George Bush lied about WMDs, and he's got a library right down the street. Donald Trump lies every time he opens his mouth. He's president of the United States. Is that hyperbole? No, sometimes he speaks the truth and that's scary. But very rarely. Donald Trump doesn't exist in real life. Donald Trump is he's an actor. We'll probably never see the real Donald Trump. What we're seeing on TV every night is a character he created. Just like the real, no one ever sees the real Vladimir Putin. They see a character that the Russian people kind of mold on TV. Strong, confident, above reproach. Standing up to the bullying United States. Is the United States a bully? Well, that depends on what side of the fist you're on. Can be, though. Ask anybody who's ever tried to sever ties with this country how much of a bully this country can be. This country's like the mob, man. Once you're in, baby, you're in. The September 11th killed the United States. Osama bin Laden succeeded. Because at that time, people lost a lot of rights. They lost their rights to getting their money out of the bank. They lost their rights to privacy, security. I mean, people say security, but they don't really have security. Right? Because we're out of money to offer people that. And they lost their rights to denounce their country. That was one freedom that you had in this country. You don't have it anymore. The IRS is now a global entity, and it leans on banks. If you say you left this country, well, the IRS says otherwise. I'm not making this up or exaggerating. There are news stories about people leaving the country, denouncing their citizenship, never coming back. And yet when they try to make money, open a bank account in another country, they can't because the bank says, hey, the IRS says you're still a citizen of the United States. And then you have to go through all this red tape to get out. And it gets costly, expensive, and time consuming. Oh, battery's still going strong. It shocks me. Both batteries still going strong. This country may not be great anymore, but it still has great people. That's really what it comes down to. There's no such thing as a great country. It's just you got a few people in it that make it work, and then you got everybody else that takes the credit. This country has had great people. This country will continue to have great people. But make no mistake, that doesn't make it a great country. It's the byproduct. So I'm going to say that. I'm going to say Donald Trump can't make America great because that's a farce. But what we can start doing is we can start fostering more great people. We can start building more great people. And if we don't, eventually there will be another country or countries that get together and they start fostering great people. That's what's starting to happen in Europe. And a lot of great people are just going to Europe. What frustrates me about this country, though, is you have people who have the potential to be great, and they go through all this bullshit, and they get to the point where they don't even want to bother anymore. Like, it just drains them. I'm not saying I'm great. I'm saying, oh, I'm okay and I could be pretty good. But I've seen great people. They just stop. People say, well, they wouldn't be great people if they just stopped. And I was like, you can break a great person. Great people have had their heart broken. Great people have definitely had setbacks. Teddy Roosevelt considered probably one of our great people. I mean, I'm sure that's arguable, but for the most part, he set the tone for what happened in this country in the last century. Yep, like I said, his laws are still in the book for the most part. Antitrust, the square deal, the protection of public parks and whatnot. His party is still in existence. You know, he built the Republican brand, or rebuilt it. It was Lincoln Party up until that point, and then at that point it became TR's party. And his setback was in 1912 he tried to come up with his own party called it was 1912 the Bull Moose Party, and it broke him. And he just wasn't the same guy, and then he had a heart attack later. Make no mistake, you can break great men. People think that, oh, you're unbreakable if you're great. It's like, no. You can be unbreakable in the moment, but you'll break eventually. Patton got broke. Wanted to go after the Soviet Union right then and there. And the United States said, look, man, we don't want no more, we don't want any parts of this. Jesus Christ, supposed to be the Son of God, one of the greatest men. Why do I say the greatest men? Because their whole calendar revolves around him. Maybe spiritually he didn't get broken, but physically his body got broken on a cross. They will break you. Will you stay broke? Some great men do, some great men don't. But it's just a sad fact that in this country that boasts of greatness, it can't foster great men. You know, it starts with a precocious child who's curious and a wee bit fearless, and has an imagination and has the freedom to explore. Children need to be given the freedom to fuck up and recover from it. But I'm saying we're losing those freedoms. We've lost those freedoms. You know, you're molding these children not to make waves. You're molding these children to pass standardized tests. You're molding these children to try to work 9-to-5 jobs that won't exist in 10 years. And I think, like I said, that's my pledge today, is I'm going to start learning random things. You know, I was going to take all my my certification tests and just keep abreast of things, but I think I'm just going to do whatever the hell I want, which is what I should have been doing in the whole damn thing. I always wanted to build robots. First, I also wanted to conquer the world, but that's a whole nother chapter. I wanted to do a lot of things, and one of my big escape things when I was a kid was I read a shit ton of books, and I played with a lot of Legos. I could build anything with blocks. I used to take electronic components and fool with them while they were plugged in. Couldn't do that today, but I've been shocked a few times. I'd rig flashlights to do special things. I had those weird Rube Goldberg inventions. But then I got to public school. There was a period of time in public school that I just became what everybody wanted me to be. One of my teachers told me God had special things planned for me, so I bought into it, and I got focused. I was like Batman or something, man. I was just like, I was studying like crazy, I was making A's, I was doing everything that I was supposed to be doing. But I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. Then right around my senior year of high school, when I realized I wasn't going to play football anymore and have that distraction, I got an IT. I got lucky. I had a teacher that said, man, I see this guy's got a hunger. He let me tag along, and I learned a lot from John. But it takes a great mentor. I had a lot of them. I had a dad that tried his best. My dad's a bit of an asshole, but then again, to be a dad, you have to be. You know, as a parent, you're not there to be your child's friend. You're there to be their instructor, their mentor, their guide. And after they get it all figured out on their own, then maybe you can start working on that whole friendship thing. But too many people are like, I want to be liked by my kids. It's like, it doesn't matter. Your kid can like you, but be in a 6x9 cell. Your kid does have to respect you because you've been around longer. I would hope that you've been around longer and you're smarter than your kid, but I don't know. I see some people having kids and it seems like the kid's the one who's on the ball. Kids are cool, man. Or kids can be cool. Sometimes I see the way they figure stuff out and I'm like, huh. Sometimes I think that maybe we shouldn't elect anybody into public office unless if they're over the age of 10. Let kids run the government. I bet things get better. Sometimes you see a 7-year-old guy acting like a fucking 7-year-old. I think about Senator, what's his name? Arlen Specter? Not Specter. The dude from Alaska. Had the Incredible Hulk gloves. Because you got all these leaders in Congress that'll throw tantrums if they don't get their way. And you just rub your forehead. You keep hearing about these old days of guys that, you know, smoky poker tables, LBJ twisting arms. Like I had to stop watching the show House of Cards. Because I don't think that such a creature as Frank Underwood exists. I don't think congressmen are that clever anymore. And even if they are, they don't have a supporting cast strong enough to help them execute their plans. I kind of thought that, what's his name, Darrell Issa, I thought he was kind of like Frank Underwood. But he's really more like the guy, Raymond Tusk. Darrell Issa doesn't care about the bigger picture because all Darrell Issa cares about is his small little world. He got in there to protect his business interests in California. He succeeded. He's not seeking the spotlight or national attention. He didn't even try to run for president. He almost has the makings of a shadow man, except he said a few dumb things in public. I'm trying to think of who's a good shadow man in Congress. And it's hard because you wouldn't be able to spot him. Hell, it might be a her at this time, this iteration. Shadow man. What do I mean by like shadow men? I think Texas had a few. LBJ would have been a shadow man, except he was always towing the party line, so he had to be thrust into the spotlight. I'm not saying that LBJ was perfect, but man, both sides have to admit he was something to watch. This dude that grew up in the system, was plugged into the system, and was smart enough to know how to work the system. I just don't think there's going to be any guys like that anymore. Because I think a lot of politicians are corporate owned now. they do is they find a dopey lawyer that loves money, that looks halfway decent in front of a camera, and they throw a ton of money at him. If he doesn't make waves, he doesn't rock the boat. You know, the only connection he has with the people is he just happens to live in that district. They give him his talking points. They coach him at the debates. And then every once in a while, if he seems especially smart or charismatic, they might prime him for a presidential run. But I don't know about that. I think now you're going to see more Trumps. The primary season will just be 5 Herman Cain sitting up on stage, and you just have to pick out the one that's the least black. Or should I say urban or seemingly ignorant or whatever. So I think there'll be another black president. I don't think it matters. He'll still be rich and out of touch with the average everyday American. Whether he's talking about arugula or quoting some stupid bootstrap talking point. I mean, what the election of Barack Obama did was it let white America and everybody else know, look, there are black people that can be out of touch with other black people just as much as white people. Like I said, I don't understand it. It's because he's raised by a white mother. He goes around the world. Only when he gets out of Harvard does he really start hanging around the black community. You know, his roots are African, not necessarily black American, and there is a difference. Black American is a lost identity that just happens to be dark skinned. African is like, you come straight from the motherland, you know what it's like down there. So for people to prop him up, oh, he's the first black president. Well, technically he's the first international president, but okay. Look at that, it finally dimmed down. Both batteries went out. That's weird. It's almost like I'm draining it, just sucking energy. So do I think that someone will ever elect a black American as president? The answer is no. Because you've been an outsider for your whole life. You just don't think it's going to happen. I think we'll vote for another African president someday, but black American, I don't know. He'd have to be flawless. I don't even think he'd have to be flawless, because I mean, like, you run into one part, you run into the Herman Cain guy who sings like an Uncle Tom, and then you run into the situation where it's a sister soldier, where she's just too revolutionary. He still have to be mixed, I think. I think we could elect another black American, but he definitely would have to be from like a biracial household again. There are guys, like I said, there are great men in this country who can run this country. But they see all the hoops you have to jump through and all the craziness, and they say, I ain't touching it. And it's a sad thing to watch. Now that I've watched about 4 or 5 political cycles here, presidential political cycles. I started watching right around Bush Gore. And the sad thing is, you get up on that stage and you don't say anything, and then you keep not saying anything. The point is to appear not threatening, but at the same time confident. And you toe that line. You do it for 11 months. You're not going to hear anything different. Barack Obama just gave the same speech over and over and over and over again. And then you get in office, and you don't have to do any of that stuff that you said you were going to do while you were campaigning. That's the reality. A friend of mine said one time, they say, when you become president, you don't become just those people, the people who voted you in president, you become everybody's president. And that's what happens. The transformation begins. You know how you said you were going to dismantle that? Yeah, well, you can't do that. And here's why. There's something that's said behind closed doors that convinces the guy who ran against a certain thing to suddenly start propping it up. So what I'm saying is I'm not excited about any prospects of any future elections because two parties, both parties take the money from the same people. It's the illusion of choice and change, but the reality of more of the same. So at this point, voting just becomes a farce. You know, we talk about how Kim Jong-il is the only guy on the ballot and everybody has to vote and it has to be 100% turnout. And how that country is not a true democracy. We say that as if ours still is. I don't know. Like I said, at this point, we're just hoping for a wild card. Maybe there's a guy in the third party that's so charismatic that the country just kind of rallies behind him. Bernie Sanders was kind of that guy. But once again, he still had to run under the Democratic banner, which means that once he got in, he would have said one thing and then he would have had to toe the party line. And I get it, Bernie Sanders didn't run as an independent because if he did, he thought he was going to siphon votes away from Hillary. But Hillary did that all to herself. She just wasn't a very likable or trustworthy person. You know, they ran her out there and they say, yeah, she's a shark, but she's the only choice you got. How are you going to run an election like that? Hillary Clinton, the only choice you've got. Hillary Clinton, the lesser of two evils. So America just said, look, let's just go flat out evil. I mean, what do I think of Trump? I think he's a great circus barker, but I don't think he's going to do anything. That's my whole deal. It's like these guys can talk mess and everybody can get scared, but evening. Oh, there's a cat back there. But yeah, everybody can talk bad about this guy and be scared of him, but he's not going to do anything. People say they're going to erode a lot of laws. The laws are already eroded. He's going to damage America's standing. America's standing is already damaged. He's going to take away a lot of our rights. We don't have hardly any rights left. At this point, you need to start figuring out what kind of revolution you want to have. I think it can be velvet. I hope it's velvet. Because I don't think this country's smart enough for a bloody one. Is there a smart way to do bloody revolutions? Touche. Point taken. So maybe it will be bloody. I don't think we're smart enough or patient enough to pull off velvet. How's the velvet revolution going to happen? It's going to happen with a bunch of, like I think I said this before, it's going to happen with a bunch of squatters. They're going to go somewhere, they're going to establish a village where everything just works. And then the government's going to keep trying to step in, and these people are going to resist them. And then the whole time people are going to be watching this group of folks these group of successful folks rebelling against the government. It's going to look really bad for the government as far as the optics are concerned. And they're going to lose face and lose a lot of power. That's how this is going to play out, if we're lucky. If we're not lucky, it's going to be mass shootings with mass gunmen. A bunch of guys who have just flat out had enough, and they're just going to start shooting up everything. Mass shootings will lead to mass bombings. And this thing will slowly start to fall apart, and people will start realizing that you think you're safe and secure, you think the government's got a lid on this, and it lost control very quickly. It can happen here. It probably will happen here. We may lose entire cities, maybe even the state. If it escalates further, it's going to be nasty. It's going to be tough to recover from. I'm not going to say a civil war, because that implies that there's some kind of organization to this thing. Now, like I said, how would I do it? I was thinking about something I saw in I was watching that show Ozark on Netflix. One thing that made me think is, I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet, that some foreign company through a domestic investor, or some foreign organized crime syndicate through a domestic investor, buys a dead city and starts laundering money through this dead city. Maybe not even a dead city, just a dead town, not a dying one like they have in the thing. They had to do that for drama purposes, but I think they're going to find dead cities. They're going to start buying up property in dead cities, dead towns, and start laundering. But like I said, if I had the capital, I'd probably try to take that thing that's going on in Youngstown, Ohio, and I'd start expanding it to other places. Maybe that's what we can do. We can start establishing basic income zones or cities where people can live for a while, and they can learn a new skill, and they can have their rent taken care of, and they get back on their feet. And then once they've established themselves after a couple of years, they can go back out into the general world and start trying to make a go of it again. I guess that's what I mean by a spotter. It would be nice if we could do the basic income thing like a basic income city. You go to the city, you stay for a certain period of time. After a certain period of time, they start watching stuff that you do, and they say, hey, you're gonna have to get off your ass. And it's the whole city's designed to get you back on your feet. Then once you do, you go back out there and you start, you know, being independent again.